One of the many advantages of digital consoles is the ability to store and recall cues quickly and easily. SI Performer lets you do this directly with the buttons on the front panel. Let's go and take a look. As you begin building your mix, setting levels, mutes and EQ, etc. as you need, if you're happy with that scene and want to use it again, simply press the Store key to store those settings in the system's cue list. Make a different cue, different things on and off, moved around, and you're happy. Store the next cue. And we'll have a third cue in our new show, where I'm going to turn all the channels off and the master down. Let's just store that. We can see what we've stored from the cue list view. And this will bring up a list of all the snapshots on the desk with the ability to edit those snapshots. But before we do that, let's just play them back and see if we've got what we were expecting. So here we go. Click, we recall that one, and we can go next and next. Simple, one-touch, store and recall off the front panel. Now that we've quickly stored and recalled some cues and seen that that is working okay, let's look at editing those cues and seeing what we can do. From the cue list, choose the cue that you want to work with and press the Edit Cue button. Here you'll find functions that let you rename the cue. Click to open the keypad and you can name it something sensible. You can set fade times for the DMX scenes, which we'll look at later. You can ask the console to send a MIDI message when the cue is played to trigger an external event. You can ask the console to receive a MIDI message and play back a cue against that incoming message. And you can use it with the Harman High QNet system to trigger venue presets. That's all from the cue list Edit Cue function. We use the Alt key to augment some of the cue store and recall functions. Alt plus Next will reverse back up the cue list to the previous cue, whilst Alt plus Store will insert a new cue just after the current cue. This is ideal for theatre applications where you frequently need to add audio cues in the middle of a scene that you've already made. One of the biggest advantages of digital consoles is the ability to store and recall scenes, and it does it exactly the same every time. One of the biggest problems of digital consoles and cue lists are they do it exactly the same every time, and live performances are not always the same. To overcome the frailties of the human actor, SI Performer is equipped with two types of isolate which effectively prevent the automation playing back data that you've previously stored should it be no longer appropriate. And we'll look at those two types of isolate now. To look at channel isolate in a practical manner, consider the scenario. You've done the sound check and set the console up, and we have a couple of scenes stored on the mixer. But at the last minute, an additional channel is required. In this case, we're going to use number 17. If I simply set channel 17 with a fader level and its EQ and a gate and all the things I need to make channel 17 work, and work through the cue list, oh dear, all those settings are lost as it returns to the value that was originally stored. And this is where we need isolate. With channel 17 selected, access the inputs menu and scroll to find isolate and set this to enabled. We see the isolate light. Now I can set the level and the on and the EQ and the gate, etc. that I need. And now when I recall the cues on the console, channel 17 remains unaffected by the automation. The first type of isolate we looked at was on a per channel basis. The second kind of isolate we're going to look at is almost a per bus or per function. And on SI Performer, that's called global isolate. Let's consider this scenario. We've done a sound check and we've set up some monitor mixes in a queue. There's monitor mix 1, monitor mix 2, monitor mix 3. But, as with the frailties of live sound, we now need a fourth monitor mix. Just like before, if I'm to go through and set that monitor mix on the console and everybody's happy, but I go and recall a cue, oh, all of the sends are recalled from the queue, and in this case, everything was off. We've lost the new monitor mix. How do we work around this? To set a global isolate, navigate from the main menu to the show window. In our example, the function that we want to isolate is the mix and routing levels to our new monitor mix, mix 4. Scroll to mix 4, select isolate. Now let's build monitor mix 4 again. Now we see when we recall the cue that the new monitor mix has been held on the console. One of the great things that you can do with Performer and Isolate is to use the update queue function to capture your new settings. Remember that isolating from the queue only affects what the automation plays back. So if we are happy with our new monitor mix here on bus 4, I can go to the queue list and I can select Update Queue. The system asks for a confirmation, yes, and now we've captured that change. Just to prove that that change is really working, let's go back to our show menu. Let's turn off the isolate for mix 4 and recall the cue again. And hey presto, our mix has been stored.